what are you seeing from him kind of accepting a new challenge and incorporating that into his game?
It's a lot of guys. I thought, Dort pitched it across last night, set a pick and roll, rolled out. Oos came down on the break, set one for Trey, rolled out. Trey got downhill. K-Rich is another guy. I mean, what we're trying to do is really be good at switch attacks, because a lot of teams switch you, and it's the hardest thing to play against. And then the other thing is, if we're going against really good 5 men, and Zubac's an excellent drop defender, is like, can we have other people set the pick and rolls and force people that aren't naturally in those positions to have to guard pick and roll? And so those are essential skills for our team now, but also, like, as we move into the future, we want to be a team that when we get switched, which is usually the hardest thing to play against, we know what we're doing, and we're kind of like thrusting ourselves into that rather than just waiting until it happens to us.
Not to make too big of a deal of the decision with Mike last night, but what's it like for you as a coach when you send a player to the scorer's table and the other team changes the guy that they're about to send in? And I don't know, what's that dynamic like for you as a coach when you've got a weapon like that that the other team's reacting to before he's even on the floor?
It's great, but it happens both ways all the time. Like Minnesota the other night, it's like, Gobert's checking in. The assistants are telling me Gobert's coming, and you're making sure that you've got what you want out there while a really good defensive big is there. So, it works both ways. And sometimes the best thing to do is to react and make sure that you've got out there what you need to counter the other team. And sometimes the best thing to do is be proactive. And there's room for both, and there's no shame in either.
I didn't get a chance to ask you this after the Minnesota game, but start of the third quarter, Lou. It seemed like he recognized that Edwards was in foul trouble and went right after him. Have you noticed maybe like a step in his evolution in terms of time, score, situation understanding, and how he can utilize his physicality?
Yeah, and all the way around. We want to be a team that thinks critically, in the moment about the game. And so knowing the bonus situation, knowing foul trouble in both directions, is important. So I think, we can improve in that area. We had a lot of bonus fouls those first 2 games. The third quarter last night, part of why they got back in the game was we kept fouling them and putting them on the line. But we're certainly growing in that area, and we'll continue to grow.
It's one thing to tell a player, ask a player to stay ready, but what is something as a coach that you can do to help them stay ready for expanded roles like Aaron last night?
Put them in the game, but seriously, like when you say stay ready and then you play the same 8 guys every night, you're not walking the walk, and so I think even if, it's, even if it's Aaron last night, he didn't play in the first game of the season. Last night he starts and plays X amount of minutes. You're sending a signal not only to Aaron, but you're sending a signal to the rest of the team. And so, I just was with Jalen Williams from Arkansas, and it's like Jalen Williams hasn't gotten a lot of cracks yet, but like he's watching Aaron Wiggins not playing the first game, and now he's starting 3, less than a week later. That's the best thing to do, and a lot of the questions about rotations and that sort of thing, like there's a method to it, and part of the method is, trying to train a team that's mentally ready at all times.
These guys have played as much as they wanted their whole career up to this point. Is that hard as a coach to kind of manage that? And obviously everybody wants to play, and I would assume you want to play everyone, but you can't. But so is it just hard to say, hey, tonight might be the night? Is it like open dialogue?
Definitely open dialogue. That's why we're so committed to their player development in the areas that we don't have constraints. There's constraints on minutes, there's constraints on starting spots, there's constraints on the ball. There's no constraints on what you can do with them pre-practice, how much you can communicate with them, how much film they can watch. And we want to make sure that our program is like really throwing our fastball, with every single guy that steps foot here, in either program, Blue or Thunder. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is like the fact that there's more competition for playing time is a signal that the team is growing and that the team is progressing. And we're certainly not a finished product as a team, but we've got 17 guys that are part of kind of a core. Not to say they're going to be here forever, but we've got 17 guys right now, and I don't think we've ever had that many on the roster that we're like in it with the way we are right now. And so that's creating the competition, and that's just like a trade-off of having a pretty deep roster of a lot of guys you like.
Mark, you've got a few former Thunder players on your staff, and Eric Maynor, Mike Wilkes, DJ White. I know Nick is obviously around at times, but what is that? Why is that important for you guys to have not only past players but past Thunder players?
Nazi too. It's guys that have played just have a different type of empathy. They've got like a sixth sense for the locker room and for players, and they've been in those guys' shoes, and they've been in those locker rooms, and they've had those thoughts, and they've got unbelievable instincts as a result. All those people are particularly high character people, and I think having high character people around your players, whether they played here or not, is critical. And then, our coaching staff in particular is not the most experienced, if you look at it on paper in terms of like years. But if you actually unpack the paths of each person on our coaching staff, we're highly experienced here, and we have great institutional knowledge of the organization. And that's the other thing that's really helpful is like having guys that played here. DJ White has never coached or done, he's worked for like 2 months of his life that hasn't been playing basketball, but he's walking in with a load of experience. He's been onboarded here, he's been drafted here, he's been in these locker rooms. He understands what the organization is about. He now can see how the organization's evolved. I mean, he's way more experienced than, his resume would suggest.
A guy like DJ who was here even before you got here, do you enjoy like picking his brain a little bit or like hearing kind of old stories of those early days of the Thunder?
Yeah, and more like picking his brain about what's happening now. I think people that haven't been around, it's not just the former players. I mean, a guy like Connor Johnson's on our staff. He was in Philly, and he's been a G League coach. He's got different experiences, and it's always interesting to hear. One of the risks of having a lot of internal promotion is you can get groupthink, and you get people that all start thinking the same way and drinking from the same Kool-Aid bottle. You might not evolve as quickly, and so getting the outside perspectives from people that are new to the environment and seeing what they're picking up on is highly valuable. Whether it's a guy like DJ that played or a guy like Connor that played but not really as well as DJ.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about the charges drawn so far this season. I think you have 9 so far in just four games. And it's been different guys getting in on the action. Obviously, Trey had 2 last night. What does that say about this group that all these guys are kind of answering the call around the rim like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to physically compete. We always talk about there's a difference between strength and physicality, and on a lot of nights we're not going to be the stronger team, muscle for muscle. And so we've got to be physical. And I thought, last night we were a physical team. We took charges. We had 3 hard fouls at the rim that were clean plays, but that, we weren't conceding layups, and we were physical even in drives. We had our chest on them last night, and I thought that was the biggest thing missing from that second Minnesota game. And so we have to continue to lean into that and get used to and throwing the punches, taking the punches. I mean, that's part of competing in the NBA especially.
And it seems like there's been a lot of verticality around the rim, especially from some of the smaller guys. Just in those moment of truth so far this season, have you been encouraged by what you've seen so far?
Yeah, we're in those plays. We're in those plays. And so that's, to me, that's a great barometer. I always tell the guys it's more than 2 points. If you get a chance to put your body in the play and you don't, the significance of it is greater than 2 points. And so the team's done a great job of that. I mean, we definitely have a ways to go in a lot of areas, but the willingness to, stick our nose in the fight for the most part has been there.
Seemed like Trey didn't try to finesse much around the rim last night. Your thoughts just on the physicality that he is bringing to those attacks and finishes?
Yeah, it's confidence and it's work. It's those 2 things, and they're interconnected. You get confidence from the work, and he put great work in over the summer. He gained confidence from the experiences he had last year, and he's blossoming in that way as a result.
Who's a better singer, Beyonce or Mariah Carey?
Beyonce. I'm on an Aretha kick right now though, so I'm not gonna. I'm going with Aretha if I get the if I can make up my own question.
Favorite song from her so far?
Don't Play That Song. Kind of a deep cut. It's a great song.
It's a deep cut.
All right.
Nice.